love for you to tweet out on our social media, the Patent Literacy Symposium, and the hashtag is hashtag PA Lit Symposium 2020. So with that, I would like to also introduce to you our speaker for today. We have Sue Ann Hauser, from a licensed visual phonics trainer. She holds a bachelor's degree in education from Indiana University and a master's of arts degree in school counseling and guidance from Gallaudet University. She serves as an educational consultant at the Pennsylvania Training and Technical Assistance Network and has been a letters trainer for many years. Sue Ann has trained more than 1,000 educators using visual phonics. She utilizes it in providing technical assistance to educators, including teachers of students who are deaf and hard of hearing, SLP, educational interpreters, literacy specialists, and general and special ed education. So with that, I'm going to turn over our presentation to Sue Ann.
Thanks so much, Donna. And I'm going to share my screen here. So let's give that a go. Okay. All right, everyone. So welcome. And thanks for joining us for an introduction to See the Sound Visual Phonics. So you will have noticed that the handouts have not been posted, and that's because with the copyright nature of visual phonics, I've got to remove a bit of things before I can post it, and some of the videos also need to be removed from the PowerPoint visual piece. So once this is all over, I will be posting the pieces that are I'm allowed to through the copyright. And hopefully it's going to whet your appetite to jump in on one of the visual phonics training that we offer through Patent. So as you know, you've probably seen this slide a couple times today, maybe, that Patent does follow and support the initiatives of the Bureau of Special Education, working to help you all build local capacity in serving students. And hopefully it will advance. There we go. And that we are supporting students in the least restrictive environment. That is our goal. Okay, our objectives for today in this little over an hour that we have. So we're going to explore visual phonics and look at the impact it has on learners across the board. We have lots of validation for that. We're going to look at the research related to it. We're going to practice some of the visual phonics prompts. And we're going to talk a little bit about implementation and how you would do that in the classroom or possibly in a like speech therapy atmosphere. But please note, and you will see it right there on the slide with the little asterisk and there at the bottom, you're not qualified to implement See the Sound Visual Phonics at the completion of this webinar. What you are qualified to do is to pursue becoming trained in it so that you can use it with your students. All right, so a little bit about me. So I know where do you go to college and all that stuff, it is nice, but I wanted to add to the filters that I'm bringing to the presentation, to the work I do with you all and students across the Commonwealth, is that I was trained as a teacher of the deaf. And I did that for many years in Pennsylvania at Schools for the Deaf, and I also taught in public schools. So for what we called mainstream settings back in the day, but inclusion. So I come with those lenses of being able to navigate both in the specialized school, approved private school, and in public schools. I am also an interpreter, a sign language interpreter, and I have used it in my educational practice of interpreting in the classroom. I've used visual phonics. And I've also supported some families as they were implementing it with their children. I'm also a letters trainer. So language essential for teachers of reading and spelling. You know, Louisa Moats, one of the gurus in all this. So I have that literacy background that I'm able to use with visual phonics as well. So, you know, it's when I say I've trained over 1,000 people, that's what I bring to the table when I am working on this training. So I wanted to just let you know that that is what I'm bringing to the table. In the essence of time, I'm going to assume that all of you are teachers, reading specialists, general education, special education, maybe some speech folks, literacy coaches. Hopefully we have some parents and families involved. So I think we probably have a wide range of participants, and I'm going to make sure it is useful to everyone who's here today. So in Pennsylvania, we currently have 2 licensed visual phonics trainers in the patent system. Of course, myself, and then Erin Campion. Erin is a statewide family coordinator for the Deaf Hard of Hearing initiative, but she is also works in the general family education consultant role in our Pittsburgh office. So she has 2 hats that she wears. She can focus on students who are deaf or hard of hearing as a mother of 2 children who are deaf. And then she also just brings that fabulous education piece because she's also a certified teacher, and she is helping our family network and initiative and engagement across Pennsylvania. And we are in the process of having 2 more visual phonics trainers. Jennifer Craig is a deaf education consultant, deafblind consultant out of our Pittsburgh office, and Tara Kelly is out of our Eastern office. And she's also in the process of becoming a licensed visual phonics trainer. All right, opening question for everybody. How do many teachers introduce written vocabulary? Now, if you want to chime in the chat, that's great. I can see it coming up. What often do you see folks doing when they introduce new vocabulary, like a standard practice? And it may not sometimes be the best practice we want to see, but so think about that. Think about what you've seen, or maybe what you've done, because I certainly have done this. You know, I've put labels on objects in my classroom. I had a bulletin board very similar to this about pollination, and had a fuzzy bee up there that we made. It was fantastic. We had a flower with stamens coming out with pollen on it. We even had a little rope that it could slide and smack into it, you know, and then we labeled everything, talking about those concepts and context. Maybe do they have kids write the words, target words several times? And might they copy it from a dictionary and then use it in a sentence? And typically what happens is maybe it doesn't stick. So, all right, a little pop quiz for you. You're just gonna need a piece of paper and a pencil, because I'm gonna ask, let's just say we've worked on some new vocabulary words, and we use those steps. And now it is your turn to read the words and spell them for us on paper. Are you ready? Go. You have 10 seconds to write down the words, and everybody has to have something on their paper. Ready? Okay, time's up, pencils down. So, how'd you do? I'm sure you know that was a purposefully challenging little quiz. So I'm gonna ask, I think folks can put things in the chat. And I do thank Kristen for saying that teachers write them on the board. I did that for you when I taught you this. Maybe a flashcards with definitions on the back. Well, we did that. So what did you write down? What strategy did you use to decode those words? Please utilize the chat so we can see. What did you do?
Sue Ann, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Your controls are covering the slide.
Oh, how's that?
Is there any
Okay.
way you can move those?
My
No,
controls.
they're hard. Like I see the chat box and I think it's your, yep, that's good now down there, but the
I am
chat,
so sorry. How do I get
thank
rid
you.
of the controls?
I'll keep looking. I'll let you know.
Sue Ann, I think it's when you're on PowerPoint. I don't know that you can. I think you can just slide them
Okay.
to the side.
All right, thanks. Hopefully that's helpful. I am trying to look at the chat. Hey, Holly is saying that she looked at it and copied it, but didn't attach any meaning. Right. And Lanny says I wasn't decoding. Instead, I just copied the letters as it was written, guessing. Okay, but I wanted you to write the words to show me that you were able to do that. Would it have helped for you to write that 10 times, 5 to 10 times? Yeah, probably not, right? And hey, what were you feeling? How did you feel when you were looking at that? And I was asking you to do those things. Nothing would have helped you, right? You tried to figure it out with, were there any letters that I could figure out based on what I already know? Activating prior knowledge. You know, often we activate prior knowledge by looking at the next person's paper, but we didn't have that option today, right? And I'm seeing folks were frustrated. Hopefully that the shape of what you were looking at might give you some clue. Yeah, you know, this is the closest we are able to get you to being a struggling reader, because you've already cracked the code. You've cracked the English code. So for us to be frustrated, we don't really have that happen. But imagine if every single written element you came across looked like that to you. You know, a lot of the kids we're working with dyslexia and other reading challenges, that is what written print looks like to them every time. All right. Hey, thanks everybody for your input there on the chat. All right, I'm trying to get my, ooh, yikes. Are you guys seeing the presentation, or are you seeing?
We're seeing a double screen. If you go to
great.
presentation, go to display settings at the top, it'll put it into, tell you where to put it into
good.
presentation. Duplicate slideshow.
Yeah, it's not letting me do that. I'll go back this way. Here we go. All right. All right, so our pop quiz. Okay. All right, so let me tell you a little bit. Hopefully are you seeing? I love technology. Okay, I'm gonna get to you a little bit more information about visual phonics here. All right, so it is a multisensory technique that supports the instruction and learning about phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. And we'll look at those definitions in a minute to make sure we're all on the same page. It uses hand shapes, which we call prompts. In Pennsylvania, we have made a clear distinction. It's not a sign, it's not a cue, because there is something called cued speech, which is a series of movement that represents sounds, but it doesn't have anything to do with the way the sound is produced. And that's the big difference. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. It has a written symbol that represents the speech sounds in English. And the prompt mimics the mouth, the teeth, the tongue, the articulators, anything that has to do with producing that sound, airflow, so that when it's being produced, that helps the students to identify and pair it with the speech sounds and the letters. And then there's a written symbol. That written symbol, some folks don't use it, but for many kids, it can be helpful when they are for like miscue analysis. They're saying this sound when they're looking at a word. Well, now let's write the symbol That's the sound you should be saying, not this one. And you can write that symbol. So sometimes people use the font, sometimes they don't. So there's more than 45 prompts that are used in the system, and the written symbols go with it. If you buy some of the materials, you'll see this little guy there. His name is Topher, and he is what they use to illustrate it with a visual or verbal description of each of them. Now, it can only be implemented by those who have been trained by a licensed trainer. Here's what Visual Phonics is not. It's not a reading curriculum or program. It is not a communication system. Folks think, oh my goodness, they think it's sign language. It is not. It is a tool to be paired with instruction and then faded, just like many other strategies or tools that are used. It is not a speech program. And it is not designed only to be used with students who are deaf or hard of hearing. That is a misnomer. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And it is not designed to be used with one specific curriculum or program. It pairs beautifully with many, many validated, scientifically based literacy programs and speech. All right, so where did it come from? It really was birthed, if you will, in 1987. And it was created by a mom of several children who were deaf. And she noticed that, I think she had 9 kids. And I think she realized that her students who were deaf or hard of hearing, her children, were lagging behind their peers and their siblings. So she started this at home, pairing sound with prompts and with written symbols, and worked with her children at home. And soon the school started saying, well, what are you doing? Because not only were they catching up, they were like jumping ahead of their peers in their classroom. So someone out in the Midwest there took it under their wing and created Visual Phonics. It was paired with the University of Wisconsin, I believe. And Visual Phonics was born. And the program was adopted by the International Communication Learning Institute. That's that last bullet there, ICLI. And it is a nonprofit volunteer organization that oversees this fabulous strategy and tool and works with all of us across the nation. Visual Phonics is used in many, many settings. There is no limit to it. And what we've seen at Patton over the last several years is that the majority of our training participants are general education teachers, some special ed, but what's happening is folks are seeing the success and they want to implement it. So our trainings are being filled with a multitude of different educators. We also have families that are able to participate. We encourage that. It's actually used in adult literacy programs. It's used with stroke victims in speech therapy. So it is across the board being utilized with anyone that is struggling reader and struggling with some speech development. We like to make family connections so that the families can support what the child is learning at home. There is no need, educators, to introduce the family to every single sound, every single prompt, but judiciously sharing with them what they need to know to support their child at home. So throughout our trainings, we challenge folks to think about what the benefit is of engaging families and how they can actually implement that with them along the way. All right, I want to share a video with you, fingers crossed. It is, it's actually a speech lesson, but you'll see that they are making that sound symbol connection with sounds and the letters up on the board. So this is a kindergarten class at the School for the Deaf in Pittsburgh. And what I want you to look for is what is a connection that there's a young lady there in a blue shirt on the right. She is the one that makes a connection that often children who have significant hearing loss are not able to make. So that's what I want you to look for.
Which letter? Go. Ga, ga, which? You're right. What is that? A G. Sounds like what? Sounds like what? Ga, ga. Good girl. Thank you. And have a seat. Who's ready? Who knows? Which sounds like? Tough one. Laura! What letter sounds like? What letter, Laura? C, is she right? C? What letter? What letter? K. Two? Two letters? You are right. I've heard both. You are right. Think about. See?
Okay.
Hey, both sound like.
All right. So look what Laura did. How about it? She made that connection. I get a little misty every time I see this video. Being a teacher of the deaf, I used to think all these other kids can hear. Why can't they read? Because these kids don't have access to the sound. Visual phonics gave them access, and they were able to make that connection. C can say k, and K says k. So she made that connection. Now I have to, a little disclaimer, the schwa that the speech teacher adds on the end of there, of course, we all went, yikes. But it's easy to be critical from this side of it. But she was brave enough to allow us to use the video, and she does work on dropping the schwa at the end there. So that was some visual phonics in action with students who have some of the most significant problems with accessing phonemes. So it's nice to see that success. All right, real quick, because we're talking about phonemes, phonemic awareness, all that piece, just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. And I didn't want to, as Anita Archer says, commit a suicide that everyone knows these definitions. So real quick, a phoneme, I can think you all might be reciting the definition. Right, so it is that speech sound that combines with others in a language system to make words. That's that smallest smallest component. Phonological awareness. So that's hearing the difference between sounds and spoken words. There does not need to be print involved when a child is isolating a phoneme. Phonological awareness is like when you're in the car and you're playing a sound game with someone in the back seat. That's phonological awareness. My poor granddaughter, did that ad nauseum with her when she was back there. Now she's teaching me things. Then we have a grapheme, just what it sounds like. It's that print piece, the orthographic piece, we bring that in, that we're going to use to spell the sounds. And then phonics, which is covered up by my controls. I wish there was a way to get rid of those. Phonics is that method or strategy of making that sound symbol connection. So we're mapping the sound with print. That's phonics. All right. So your students are identifying different units of language. And often it is, our research shows us that the larger the chunk, the easier it is to hold on to. But often they're memorizing the whole word. They're not really breaking it down into individual phonemes. So a word is that smallest spoken unit of language that has meaning in isolation. Our prefixes and suffixes have meaning, but in isolation, they're not a word. So a word is when we have enough of our letters together to have meaning in isolation. That syllable is a word or part of a word with one talking vowel. A lot of us know different motions that go with this stuff. Onset rhyme, that initial phonological unit. So if the word is mop, is the onset, op is the rhyme. Those of you who are old enough to remember Electric Company, where they had the silhouettes, and they were often doing onset rhyme. Op, stop. So that's onset rhyme. And again, you'll notice that word is the biggest chunk, syllable is the next, onset rhyme is also chunks to hold on to, and then breaking it down all the way to the discrete phonemes. And we already talked about that's speech sound that combines with others in our language system to make words. That is the hardest piece for many kids to do. So the bottom is the easiest, working up to those individual phonemes. When we start pulling things apart, kids sometimes get lost and they don't know what they said by the end of the individual phonemes. So those whole words are easiest. Those discrete phonemes are the hardest piece. So some general summary of the research done on visual phonics. Now the website for ICLI, the International Learning, I just lost it, for the Visual Phonics Organization, that there is a list, a multitude of the research. It's curated on their website. And a gentleman named Dave Krupke, that's Ambrose University in Iowa, he's the curator of the research, and he put together those elements that came to the surface with a literature review, and here we have it. So statistically significant improvement for students who are deaf or hard of hearing in their reading skills, and then when they use systematic instruction, that's when they saw it. For pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, it helped them acquire the knowledge of letters and sounds earlier in their development. First and second grade, that summer drop-off, that recoupment time in the fall was actually reduced. Wouldn't that be great? Especially those of us who are working with our kindergarten 1, 2, and with any struggling reader, regardless of the age. Kindergarten was showing those encoding skills earlier. The referrals went down for Title I and reading recovery in kindergarten. There was an increased rate of sight word recognition and increased retention. And Dibble scores went up. This is what we're going for, right? First grade decoding skills were enhanced. So that's like the overall general summary of the literature. So some supporting research for how visual phonics is used, that visual, auditory, kinesthetic piece of it. Gestures and learning. I am not going to review all the research on this slide. What this is here is to tell you, we've got the research to show that gestures enhance learning, improve retention, so that putting that piece together with our instruction, we know it works, and we have the research to back that. And there is a common basis across the research, and Louisa Moats really puts it together beautifully here. And I'm going to pause a second for you to just read those 2 bullets. So we know that those print units, letter-letter combinations, we need to have those in place to have a proficient reader. Decoding and encoding, we need that mapping sound to print for a student to become a fluent reader. And there's some more thoughts from Louisa. And again, being a letters trainer, I cannot do anything in literacy without pulling on that training and that knowledge. So good and poor readers, that phonological piece is so important. There's a deficit there. It is going to be a serious problem for that student. So the awareness of linguistic units, the word, syllables, onset rhymes, how all of that is intertwined tremendously impacts the ability for reading and spelling. And students who cannot read words well usually demonstrate weakness in that phonological processing. And they cannot manipulate those sounds, which makes it almost impossible for word attack skills. And finally here on this general research side, Mark Seidenberg, let me move my controls again. You know, again, another name we know in our literacy research from the speed of light. On the left-hand side, we see all the elements that they looked at. And on the right, we have the outcome. Just take a look, take a moment to skim that. Children cannot find the patterns we're looking for. You and I look at CH and know it most likely says ch, right? Ch. And of course, I know the prompt for that. Kids can't find those patterns. It really makes them ineffective readers. And with all those skills, working memory, understanding the print, it really is a challenge. All right, so a few elements from specific to visual phonics. I know it's a little heavy on the research here, but that's what we're all about. Validating research to know that what we are talking about works, that we know it's the real deal. So this is specific to visual phonics. Now this is general literacy effectiveness. The data indicate it can be used effectively to instruct at-risk kindergartners in those letter sound relationships. And it can be maintained once instructed. I think that is a very important piece. Another study that was done, visual phonics and explicit instruction are useful interventions to increase letter sound relationships in older elementary children at risk for reading failure. So using it with those kids that are after 2nd grade, we all say that window slammed shut. You know what? Not so much. It's never too late. And implementing this with something like Wilson for the younger kids, Foundations. We've seen it used across the board with those effectively. Now, specifically to students who are deaf or hard of hearing, and think about some of the hardest struggling readers that could possibly be in your classroom. Many of you may have them in that general ed setting as they are included. Given 1 year of instruction, phonics-based reading curriculum, core reading programs, that's what we're talking about here, supplemental by visual phonics. Kindergarten and 1st grade students who are deaf or hard of hearing, they demonstrated those improvements with beginning reading skills measured by standardized assessments. That's the other element there that cannot be overlooked, is that standardized assessment piece. Then we have the acquisition of reading. It didn't appear that hearing loss was related to it. So there we go. I want to show you this young man. He is in 8th grade at this time. First language, there was none, just about. He came to the United States from the Philippines. He was educated in Pennsylvania, and that's how we got this wonderful video. And watch here again, your task is to listen for his self-correction along the way.
Okay, read these words for me, please.
Hotel.
Hotel.
Hotel. Confuse. Escape. Item. Item.
What's the other sound it says?
Item.
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 Give me your T. Item.
Item.
Thank you.
Robot.
And I hear robot.
Robot.
Okay.
Begin.
Good.
Replace.
I hear
Replace. Replace.
Nice job.
Inspire.
Clear I.
Inspire.
Very good.
Humid.
Very good.
Protect.
That was great.
Costume.
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 Good, you.
5 day pair.
What's the other sound? We had A or A. Which one is that going to say?
5. Vampire.
Very good. You found it by yourself.
So this gives him a way to have word attack and listen. He is listening and using and motioning, and it's all connecting. All right, really quickly, because I know I've got a little heavy there on the research. We did a study here in Pennsylvania, and Lena Edwards Santoro was our researcher who supported us, and I know many of you know that name. And here's just what we wanted to show you. So these were students across Pennsylvania who were deaf and hard of hearing, and we had students that would be considered multiply disabled, if you will, who had significant needs. They did not take the PASA, but were just above. And look where they started out at intensive. And look where they ended up after a year of visual phonics accompanying a scientifically validated literacy phonics program. Isn't that amazing? That is amazing. And, you know, we're looking at this little guy here with the blue line. You know, he was above benchmark till he was done, but look at the gains that everybody made. So, all right, so in summary of that, multisensory, it's a way to show all these different sounds and spellings. Like look at the dough, tough, through, O-U-G-H, different sound every time. You know what, and it's fun, the kids like it. Even older kids are willing to do it. And it pairs with whatever program is being used in the classroom. It is a tool to make them visible. It is not a communication system. It's not a program. It's not a language. So just want to make sure that is clear, because we still have people who we go into their classrooms and they say it's visual phonics time and they're just learning the prompts. That's not what it's about. We don't have time for that. Can't get this to advance. Here we go. Donna, I'm gonna have you, if you need to interrupt me, but when you're monitoring the chat, let me know. All right, so think about all the vowels we have. We have those abstract vowels and diphthongs, those ooh, ow, those are that vowels that are tough for kids. And then there's that R-controlled vowels, vocalic R for our speech folks. That's very tough for kids. Now we have a way to show it. And then all our consonants. You know, our G says G, but it also says J. Let's think of all that. We have all these different sounds. So here's how it works. The prompts and fonts suggest the way the sound is made. So on the left there, we have the G, which in this, it's the G. So it's the hard D, G. And I want you to take your hand and make it like this. So it almost looks like a G in sign language, if you know that. So you have your index finger and thumb up like this, and there's a little space here. So do you see how that looks like the font next to the G there, right? So now what I want you to do is close your fingers. Put that close to your neck. So think about where that sound is made. G, G. You see almost nothing, right? So it's back at the back of the throat. It's a glottal sound. So your tongue is up in the back and it's a release. G. Watch my hand. G. G. So you have that closed in the back and release. So that's the visual phonics sounds, prompt and phoneme font for that. Now let's go over to the T. Think about what your teeth are doing. Your tongue, your breath. So for this, you take your index finger, tuck it under your thumb, and think about your tongue exploding off your teeth. Now, look at your hand. Do you see the font? Your thumb is the piece to the left, your index finger is one to the right, and your middle finger is a little hump in the middle. So do you see the font right there? Make that connection. And you'll see me, I do my G back here, the T here. I'm never covering my articulators, very important. Here's another important piece. Voice is a choice, but mouth is a must. So if you have a kid that doesn't want to use their voice for whatever reason, okay, that's fine. You must move your articulators. It's going to make that connection in your brain to help make that stronger connection. Okay. All right, I'm going to keep moving.
Sue Ann, there is one question.
Yes.
If we are trying to teach kids the sounds, wouldn't adding emotion increase the amount of things that they have to remember?
Ah, good question. You know, the kids aren't having a problem with that. We aren't seeing evidence of that. And we're only using the ones they need. If I have a kid who's got the st in stop, we're not gonna mess around with learning those. They're just having trouble with the vowel. You're only gonna use that vowel. And that's a ah, stop, okay? Now, but good question. And it doesn't matter which hand you use. All right, so here is a video I'm going to share with you of some implementation across Pennsylvania. And again, notice this first young man.
Gonna roll it.
You're going to hear him. He's working on vowel teams. And there is a point where he says for EA. And the teacher is trying to get him to just do one vowel sound.
Watch. Ready?
B.
Speak.
E.
And then we're going to do visual phonics.
P. E. A.
Oh. Does it say ah?
No.
What's it say? EA. What's it say?
E.
So, it's same.
Yes, that's written on the board.
E.
Right. Okay, ready?
We're going to move ahead. I'm going to show you, some of you might know what an Osmo is. This teacher of the deaf is using an Osmo with this young man.
What's our next sound? We have 3 sounds. What? It. Ch.
T. H.
TCH. Great listening, Brandon. You can't find it. It's upside down. Good job.
Osmo, you can make your own. You can download your own PowerPoint slides into it, so you can customize it. It's fabulous. We're actually going to put some of those in our short-term loan program for people to borrow. So he did not necessarily do visual phonics back to her. So if you have a student who that is not within their realm of possibility, you using it still going to benefit them. We have students who might have cerebral palsy or other motor issues. If they're consistent making an approximation and they're making the connection, we accept it. Okay, we're going to ask you to do it like you're taught, like like you're taught in the training. And then finally, here is a young man who is using visual phonics for syllable types. So we're actually not going to watch that. We're going to move into, but just so that you see across the board, it's being used all over the place, but it's only being used to the extent the child, wherever their deficits are, not for every sound. So, all right. So let's get a few prompts here under our belt. So this is the sound S, as in sun, and you draw the symbol in the air with your forefinger. All right. So put your palm towards you, your hand out to the back, and you're going to draw the font in the air. So it's like your fingers running along the top. Okay. If you want to just make a little note about that on your paper. This is the Z sound, as in zebra. And we do a zigzag in the air with your index finger. Now remember, S was real wavy. Z is very stiff, because think about how it's made. Z. It's a strong sound. S has that airflow. Z, forefinger. You know this one already. Remember t, t, that air exploding off your teeth? T, t. I know I'm going fast, but this is just to give you a little sample. Now the th sound. So it's voiced TH, and our tongue is against our teeth. To make that prompt, you make like the OK hand or a letter F. And if you can get your fingers together, usually that's a challenge. And your index finger just slides down your thumb. It's voiced, so you should have that vibration, and it's kind of a tongue tickler. But that's the font for it. And do you see how it looks like that? Can you see that? Now here's our short I sound, I, as in pin. So you hold your hand horizontally, your little finger comes out from your mouth like this, I. And again, if you're left-handed, I, just fine. Okay, do you remember your pop quiz? Anybody know what it said? And Donna, I'll ask you if anybody is being frisky enough to say what they think this is. Think about what we just learned.
They said, this is it.
Very good. Very, very good. I'm very proud of you. So everyone, let's do that together. Start with we're just going to segment. Okay, ready? The first word. I. Okay, next word. Is. Same letter, right? S and S, but different sound. Is. And then finally, it. This is it.
Sue Ann, there was a question. Would visual prompts be too much for a child with autism? And yeah, I know our previous presenter had used it in Bucks County IU. So if you want to take a look at that recording when we're done.
Nice.
But, how does it work with nonverbal children in autism? So,
you know, that's like a whole training in itself. But yes, it has been used with children who are on the spectrum. And I believe if you go to the seethesound.org under research, there is at least one study there that was done with children who are on the spectrum. But we know it is useful, absolutely. And again, you know your kids best. Sometimes recording something on an iPad and having that be the way it's introduced versus having that direct contact visually. So there's ways to implement this with kids who might have some difficulties with making connections with folks. So, so I just want to show you this gem of a little video. This is one of those things I can't post because I don't have the rights to this, this video itself. But the gentleman who is on here, he's an educational interpreter, and he is making the video visual for the students. Now, he's an interpreter, so he's trying to interpret all of it, but think about it. This could be used with any kid. The target sound is aw. So think about how you could use a technology to impose someone using the prompts. Oh, that is not what I wanted to happen. Oh, goodness. Why didn't that play?
Let's sing. A-W-R. Ah, shawl. Ah, ah, shawl. Ah, hop. Ah, ah, hop. Ah, fawn.
All right, so you get the gist. So he was doing the whole word. He was also ditching out some information that might have not been useful because there was a lot going on, but it gives folks a tool to give access to instruction. And over the last few months, has that been important or what? Visual phonics is even used in spelling tests because we don't prompt what we don't say. So for example, shawl, he pronounced shh. So that's one, SH is one sound. There's nothing that shows them that it's two separate letters. You have to know that shh can be spelled with an SH. Can be spelled other ways too. And we're testing, not teaching. So just a little example, you just like we do with all spelling tests, you present the word, you put it in a sentence, you present the word again, the student writes the word. So you use the visual phonics just for the word. And I'll give you an example. So let's say the word is pie. So there's two sounds, but we're not saying, oh, there's two sounds, and it's p and I. We are saying pie. Mom made an apple pie. Pie. The kids who can hear it are hearing the word pie, so they're actually getting the p and the I. Now it's co-articulate, it's together. So now the students who don't have access to it or could use that prompt to help trigger are getting pie. But we have to be careful that we're not giving them an advantage over the rest of their students. There are some notes about implementation that I will include on the presentation when we post it. But I'm going to keep moving for time's sake. For those of you who are speech and language pathologists, we have we've actually done training just for SLPs on visual phonics, so you can all come together. And Elizabeth Christopher, our state lead for speech, she helped us create a tool that has the visual phonics symbol, the International Phonetic Alphabet symbols for it, and then the letter patterns and some examples. So we will provide you with that when you're doing a speech, if you're an SLP or you find it useful. We also connect resources. The resources on this slide are what we would recommend during a language essentials letters training, other literacy trainings. We also recommend them because this is what you use and you layer visual phonics over top. You know, that phoneme, grapheme mapping. These are all the resources that we tell folks that are good to use. Now the last bullet there, the sound spelling cards by Mary Dahlgren, who is also a national letters trainer. We have folks that use her cards, the phoneme cards. They're fantastic. I'm not getting any kickbacks on this. They're fantastic. And here you see the vowels set up by production. A long E at the top left because it's high and tight, E. And then the next one down is I. Well, how effective would that be to have that on your wall and you can use the visual phonics prompts with it, or add the font. Just add the font onto any of these that you're using with your students. Now, often you would do it one at a time as you're introducing the sounds, not necessarily bombarding them with all at once. But these are the consonants that are available in these cards with all the different productions, the stops, the nasals, that kind of thing. So just, again, things that we tell folks to use because you layer it over top. A website you might want to check out is Sound Principles for Literacy. That is Dave Krupke. He's the curator of research for visual phonics, and he has some fantastic resources around understanding visual phonics for teachers, for families. Won't kids be confused? He's written several articles like, won't they be confused because we're using prompts now? And so something you might want to check out for more information. Oops. So training in visual phonics for patent, just checking my time here. There's never a fee. We typically have done it face-to-face at one of the patent offices. It is 2 consecutive days. We have a 10-hour minimum of training time as licensed trainers. And they're changing some of their materials, but we only require at sometimes, depending what they're going to do with their current materials, a materials fee. There's no fee for the training, but if we require materials, it is less than $40, so that you walk away with something tangible for implementation. We also do refresher trainings, and that is face-to-face. It's only 1 day. No materials are required for that because you will have already been trained and have your materials. So you must have already had the initial training, 2-day training. And we can verify that through ICLI if it was done somewhere else or through our own patent registration system. Now we can come out to your local location and do training there. Of course, there's never a fee. Same deal, 2 consecutive days, probably materials. We provide the handouts and deliver the training, but you all take care of all the details with the registration, reserving the facility, that type of piece, of it. And then we have to talk about what CEUs you want provided. It usually is done through you, but sometimes we can help with ASHA if you don't have a vehicle for that. Same with the face-to-face. We can come out and do that for you with your staff who have already been trained. We are developing online learning opportunities. We're right in the middle of doing that as I speak. And we're hoping to roll it out in the year 2000, in this coming school year. So we're part of a national network. We're at the table working with other trainers to create that training. And the ICLI folks, they have materials that can be purchased once you are trained. How did I get the font into my PowerPoint? Well, you can download it. And then there is a key with it because, where is the sh key on the keyboard? You know, there isn't one. Where is the ow key? Aw. So there is a key to the keys that you would use to create your visual phonics things with your students, or for the OSMA or whatever. And there you can see the rest of the materials on their website. Phew. And that hopefully has given you an overview of visual phonics, and we have just a few minutes for questions, if we have any more, Donna.
We do have a question. Someone was asking about, there's certain programs that we have that have hand signals built into that. How does that work with that collaboration of hand signals with programs?
Yeah, good question. You know, that's going to be a team decision. So if it's working with a student, don't mess with it. You know, this isn't necessarily the magic bullet for every kid, but if it's working, don't mess with it. However, we have had teachers that say, you know what, we've been doing, you know, this for the long A sound. But now we're going to do, you know, think about it. Let's talk about it. This was long A, but now it's this. It's an A hand close to our face, just coming straight out. A. And often kids, they do great with it. We have a bigger problem with it than they do. And we have kids that are now, that use sign language or whatever, that they look at their teachers or their interpreters and say, show me visual phonics. Show me visual phonics. They're asking for it. So, and they are not confused. But you know your kids best. If it is going to destroy their world to have to try something different, then maybe not. Or just try a couple here and there and see how it goes. Because if it's not working, we don't take medication that isn't working. So if this treatment match, if you will, isn't the right fit for that student, maybe we need to shift to something else.
Yeah, thank you, Sue Ann. I think it's so important to match what we're doing consistently across different areas and venues as well. So that I liked your answer about it being a team decision to make those decisions, how to approach it.
Yeah.
I don't think I see any other questions. If anyone wants to unmute, you can ask a question. Okay. Well, with that, is there anything else you want to add, Sue Ann?
You know, I just want to tell folks, watch for training opportunities. We have had to cancel our summer schedule. We usually do a rather robust summer training schedule for visual phonics. But as you know, we're not doing any face-to-face trainings. And but know that we are diligently and dedicated to providing this to you virtually. And if you want to email me, my email was attached to the slides here, which again, we will post, but it is shauser@patent.net. And you can also find me on the website. So we love to work with you to get your staff trained or get them refreshed. So I look forward to seeing all of you at a future training.
Well, thank you so much, Sue Ann. This is always incredibly interesting, and I love to see it in practice and what you have shown. To all of you, thank you for attending this session. This session was recorded and will be available on the Patent YouTube channel in the near future. The patent literacy team, as Sue Ann mentioned, is looking to provide virtual and other kinds of supports around all of the work that we're doing in literacy and the presentations in the symposium for maximizing your learning for families and educators.